Hello, I'm Robert Moynihan, the editor of Inside the Vatican magazine, with Father Charles Murr. On May 21st, 2025, I'm speaking from Rome, Italy, and Father Murr is in Spain. Hello, Father Murr.
And a hearty good afternoon/evening to you, Robert.
Father, we talked just for a moment before we started, and I apologize, we're a few minutes late. I was just down in St. Peter's Square talking to a couple of people. I saw Pope Leo this morning at the papal audience, although I didn't see him face to face, but not too far away. I saw him yesterday at St. Paul's outside the walls, and I chatted with Cardinal Jim Harvey, who is at St. Paul's outside the walls. The basilica was filled as Pope Leo XIV came into that beautiful basilica. And I can tell you that I went to look at the number of circles that still remain for papal portraits.
Yes.
And I think that there's 11.
Oh my gosh. So I'm not going to see the end.
No. Well, unless we go quickly, pope upon pope. But
there are 11 empty.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
There's one more on the end, and then there's 5 and 5 on the end of the two, at the end of the two naves, the side naves, I guess. So we talked about it being a blur, and the blur is events have happened so quickly. Father, I'm going to tell you something that you know, but I'm not sure that you're aware fully. Today is May 21st. April 21st, 1 month ago, is the day Pope Francis passed away.
Oh my gosh. It's already been a month. Okay. A lot has happened in 1 month, huh?
Yeah. And let's take through what's happened in 1 month, because all of us have passed through a week in which Francis had a funeral and went to be buried at St. Mary Major. Then a week of cardinals gathering and people making lists of papabili, and Cardinal Parolin and Cardinal Tagle and Cardinal Erdo of Budapest. And then people gathered here in Rome by the tens of thousands. They canceled the canonization of Carlo Acutis. And then they went into conversation for several days. They went into congregations where the over 80 cardinals were also with them. The papers were filled with various reports. Then they went into conclave. Most people thought it would be 3 or 4 days. They went in on May 7th. Today's the 21st. It's 2 weeks ago today. And there was black smoke that night. And then the next day, another black smoke. And then in the afternoon, just about 6 o'clock, there was white smoke. And Cardinal Memberti came out on the balcony and he said, "I announce to you a great joy. Habemus Papam." And people cheered even before they knew the name, because we had no idea. And then he mentioned the name Robert, and I thought, oh my goodness, because my name is Robert. And Robert Seurat.
Did you feel tapped on the head or the shoulder?
Yeah, I wondered how I would make my way to the basilica, but no one came to say anything to me. But I did feel that's the first time my name has been mentioned from the balcony.
Well, there you go. That's something.
Yeah, they could have, if they had mentioned Charles.
You should have been very shaken. You would be very, very shaken if they did that. Anyway, but so then we got a pope.
We got a pope, and he's been doing something every single day. And one thing you and I wanted to talk about and put right in the front is that there's a lot of disinformation. About half of it seems to be disinformation, and half seems to be pretty steady, more or less true information. But we're getting videos now that the Pope stopped and saw his childhood classmate is homeless in Rome, and he called him over to the Pope Mobile and said, "I'm going to help you." Nothing like that ever happened. But his voice is there, his picture is there, and the report that Cardinal Sarah was made a special envoy is not true. Nothing was announced by the Vatican of that nature. The report that he made had a long conversation or wrote a long address to the president of Burkina Faso and spoke about colonialism. That's all over the internet. But
Yeah, I was going to bring all of this up also on your program, on the program today, Robert, because I was taken in by more than one of those. The headline reads something spectacular. You're hooked immediately. You go in, and there is the Pope speaking, actually speaking his voice and telling you all of these things. None of it ever happened. When I was listening to the content in the first two that I listened to, I knew this is impossible. This is not a Pope. A Pope doesn't speak that way. And I was right. So the only thing I can tell people is, and people are sending me all of these things. He said this, he said that. And I answered back, no, he didn't. It's not him. So what I would suggest as a practical solution, if you're on YouTube or online, look to see who's presenting it. If it's from our channel here, fine. If it's from EWTN, fine. If it's from LifeSite News, fine. Those are the ones you know. Catholic Register, fine. But if it's just some company you haven't heard of, that's not the Pope. Because first of all, anything that he would say that would be newsworthy would be on all of the Catholic stations, long before it's on the other stations. So you've just got to bear with it. Some legislation is going to be necessary along the line. They're going to have to do something to get all of this garbage off. Because it's not only that. They're not only doing this about the Pope, though he's the major one now. It's also President Trump, Cardinal so-and-so, Vice President Vance, etc. All of these people are subject to, I'm sure that sooner or later it's going to be you and me, Robert. We'll be having feuds on the air. I mean, this is scary because it's done almost to perfection.
Okay. So when you say it's scary, I wanted this to be the first point of our discussion, and I want it to remain for the record. There is a reason Pope Leo has 3 times mentioned the danger and the need for an ethical use of artificial intelligence. But we are seeing it now right in front of our eyes, and we are still, say, 2 years away, a year away from it being much more efficient and effective and seductive. Therefore, and there's also an old phrase that the motion of the spinning top grows quicker at the end. In other words, and then finally it topples over. We are now in a phase where the tremendous technological developments are in so many different fields, whether it's genetic survey or the iris of your eyes as an identifier, or our voices are now, with about 10 or 20 of our words, they can kind of extrapolate, and we make speeches because the computer. So reminds me of the phrase in Scripture of strong delusion, and reminds me also that Satan is the father of lies. And we have to be aware that we should be kind of quiet, centered, focused, and be patient and wait for confirmation, and not just suddenly go along with something that sweeps us emotionally into a panic or a fear. Mm-hmm. You said you were afraid, and I think we would be if we should be. But we should be aware that we're entering into a time which is different from prior times.
Obviously, and I've got to tell you, I was surprised by myself because I thought I'm sophisticated enough to be able to see through anything false like that. I wasn't. until I'm halfway into the message and I'm saying, no, just a minute. He cannot possibly be saying X, Y, and Z. And he wasn't.
Same thing
Yeah,
happened to me.
Yeah, I knew from the context. But however, look at people who don't have the knowledge, just the theological knowledge, philosophical knowledge that you and I have. They would be easily swayed by all of that, easily taken with it. It's really dangerous. It's really dangerous. That's why I'm saying, check the source. If it's from a believable source, listen. Otherwise, don't. Just don't. No.
Okay. Thank you for that. I agree with you. And I looked at the source on a couple of these, and it was like Asteroid Studios or something.
Yeah, there you go. That's a no-no. Anything that says Asteroid Studios, no.
But and also they use real images because everyone can sort of screenshot or copy what the cardinals walking into the Sistine Chapel, or and then the artificial intelligence does the story. They create a story, and you're seeing these all over the place now. But the story will show the face of a real cardinal. It might be Cardinal Parolin, or
Well, they're showing the face of the real Pope, and
Yeah.
he's speaking the words that he's speaking. His mouth, his lips are actually saying what he's. What it's amazing.
Yeah.
The technology is surprising, astounding,
I
but
think
it's scary.
we're at the point when $5,000, I think, can get you some programs which lip sync. It's very widespread, and then these are shared. You share it with your group. You might share it with your prayer group or something. You share it. Suddenly, 200 people know about it, and then in half an hour, it goes around the world.
Yes. Yeah,
So-
that's why the only way right now that we have to detect those things is to look carefully at the source. Who's producing it? And if it's someone you've never heard of, don't turn it on. That goes for the Pope, it goes for the President of the United States, it goes for everybody.
Yeah.
These are all over the internet.
Yeah. And so the Pope has said that he wants in his pontificate to also address the question of the ethical use of artificial intelligence. The Vatican came out in January with a long document, a couple hundred pages, by the way, on the use and the abuse of artificial intelligence. But these latest videos, which I think they were out last fall and last winter, but they're with regard to the Pope and with regard to things he's done and kneeling, getting out of his Pope mobile and kneeling down with a boy that he went to grammar school with, that never happened. But people are writing to me saying, "Oh, I saw the Pope did this. How amazing!" So
Yes.
I'm just saying that's our first point. I think the Pope himself is aware that with this new technology, the question of morality and
But it's also a question, Robert, it's a question of buyer beware. There's nothing that the Pope or President Trump or anyone can do about this for the time being. Only the person who's the buyer, the person who's watching, who's selecting that to listen to, has to beware. And if you're looking at the source, judge for yourself. If you don't know the source, don't listen to it. It's that simple.
Okay. I have to confess that a good friend of mine, a woman, very sort of thoughtful woman who follows things and looks at sort of dangers facing the faith, and she found something that she sent to me, and I read it, or I think it was a short video, and I said, "Oh no," and I sent it to several of my friends. But then she wrote to me a few minutes later. She said, "I just found out that was a fake."
Yeah.
But I had already acted. So the main thing that you said, I think, is the main point. That let's try to be a little more cautious and evaluate things and look at the source.
You have to be a lot more cautious, because
Okay.
eventually you're going to be in the hot seat. I remember years ago, without investigating something that came to me, I was so enthusiastic about it, I can't remember what it was right now, that I sent it out to a dozen people. Well, it was wrong. It was false. It was a contrived message, a contrived video. I got flack from everybody. Because you're the one who did this. You wasted my time. You did this. Anyway, we got to be careful. Just be careful of look at the source. Look at the source. Look at the source. That's all I can tell you for now. That's all you can do.
All right. The next point I would say is that the entire Catholic world is watching a kind of triple question. What extent does Pope Leo the 14th represent a continuity or departure from Pope Francis, and then by extension also from the popes of the conciliar period? And how do they read the tea leaves in regard to the line he will take? And they start most often with his name. And that was quite positive for almost everyone, that it would have been too simplistic and a matter of concern if he had just said, I am Francis too. But he didn't say that, and he said, I am Leo the 14th. Father, didn't this mean a great deal? This was the very first thing that people looked at.
Yeah, to me, it was a great relief. It was a great relief that it was not Francis II, because I thought we couldn't go down that road anymore. We couldn't. And even if this Pope decides he's going to some extent, go down that road, I would caution him, Holy Father, be very careful. Be very careful. Everybody I know has just about had it with that road. If you want to continue, that's fine, but be your own man. This is what everyone is waiting for. We want you to be your own man. We want you to be your own Pope. When I heard the name, I thought it was very good. It wasn't John Paul III. It wasn't Paul VII. It wasn't Francis II. It was an old name, an established name for Leo. And I think he also said what we were just talking about when we opened the show, Robert, as the Industrial Revolution caused Leo the 13th to write Rerum Novarum and social encyclicals and begin a tradition of social encyclicals, of social teaching in the Catholic Church. He said, or somebody said, I think it was he said, it's so hard to tell because we've gotten so much false information, and I've gotten it myself. But the idea was that he doesn't face the Industrial Revolution, of course, but he's facing the artificial intelligence revolution, the revolution of computer science, these kinds of things. It's another revolution happening, and it has to be addressed. And I thought, well, that's good. That's a fresh start and a good start. I was happy with the name. I was happy with the way he dressed. I'm talking about superficial things. These are all superficialities, but they do mean something. Remember the you only get one chance to make a first impression.
Yeah.
Remember that saying? Well, it's not just a saying; it's a truth. So his first impression, for me and for most people that I know, was very good. It was very positive. It was very positive in the sense that it was not Francis. It was not Bergoglio. That okay. We've got his own man. That was it. Good.
We have a comment from Katie, and I should tell you, we've got about 300 people with us right now, Father, live. And we appreciate all of you very much. And Katie is saying, I hear that Brother Leo was St. Francis's best friend. And that's why he took it. He and Francis were best friends.
I don't think so, but you know, I remember that it was brother Leone, brother Leone, right? And I remember the relationship that they had, Francis and Leone. Francis never touched money. He talked against it. He never touched money. But brother Leone was there with a satchel. Anytime you wanted to deposit something in, he was there. He was the practical one. And between the two, they made a living. Right? It's good.
And it was to Brother Leo that St. Francis of Assisi addressed his famous blessing. May the Lord bless and keep you. May make his face to shine upon you. And may he grant you peace. And then he signed it with the sign of the Tau. And that is still in Assisi today. You can see it in the Museum of the Basilica of St. Francis. All right, so we started with disinformation and dangerous delusionary videos which people are trying to apparently make money with. And then we went on to say that Pope Leo wants to have some type of a teaching about the ethical use of artificial intelligence, which is following on the issuing in January, before Pope Francis died, of a long document talking about how, if it's used well, it could provide us with tremendous support for our work. But if it's used badly, it could be a kind of something that could entrap us or enslave us. So it needs to be ethically used. Then we went on to talk about the choosing of his name. But we didn't yet get to one of the most interesting things of all, is that as the pontificate unfolded, the white smoke, his election, and then the homily to the cardinals the next morning, and then we were waiting for this already in the funeral on April 26th. President Trump was in Rome, and he came in with about 20 big black vans, and he was here, and there's that famous picture of him sitting with Zelensky in St. Peter's Basilica. You recall that?
Quite well.
At the funeral mass for Pope Francis. So suddenly the Vatican, I even said it at the time on a television program, this is something that's connected to and issuing from the leaders coming to the funeral mass of Pope Francis, that they meet and they talk. Trump and Zelensky had left their meeting, I think it was, in February, when they said he wasn't grateful and he wasn't showing any gratitude. Vance pointed at him and said, you know, you're ungrateful. And so the Americans and the leader of Ukraine had seemingly parted ways, but then they were sitting there in St. Peter's Basilica looking and talking, and people started to wonder if there'd be a new phase here. So then the inauguration mass was 3 days ago, and J.D. Vance was here again, and Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State. And the very next morning, President Trump from Washington gets on the phone with Vladimir Putin in Moscow and talks with him for 2 hours. And after, he makes a social media post on his Trump social, and he says, the Vatican has said it is willing to host peace talks, dialogue, peace negotiations. And he gave the impression that he was taking it seriously. And that was Monday morning. Now it's Wednesday evening. This thing hasn't moved too much further, but a lot of people are wondering if suddenly we might see the Vatican play a role in the final difficult effort to make the ceasefire and peace in Ukraine. What do you think, Father Murr?
That could happen. Why not? It's happened before. The Vatican is usually in any conflict offering a hand in the resolve, or offering a place, offering a situation where both sides can get together and discuss something. That's happened many, many, many times, also in modern history. I did like, though, the presence of Macron, French President Macron, on all the events. He was put in his place quite easily, many a time. I thought that was good. It served him right.
Yeah, you're referring to the fact that he
But
came up.
it's one thing. It's one thing for the president of the United States to sit down with Zelensky and have a quick talk before mass would start. It almost looked to me. I remembered so many times before attending such things as a priest, you'd be called to hear a confession or some confessions in the sacristy. It almost looked like there was a confessional situation. Of course, it wasn't, but I've been in that situation myself. But that I liked that picture. I liked that. It was hopeful. It was hopeful. Certainly Zelensky didn't go there for religious purposes. He went there for politics, and that's fine. It's fine. That's who he is, and that's what he's about. I don't think he has any religious sentiments, certainly not deep ones. But Trump, I think, went there for really religious purposes and to represent our country. But he was always available as president of the United States to look for a way to peace, and I took that as a good sign.
All right. So, how would such a meeting occur? Do you think would the people negotiating actually reside in the Vatican, or would they be?
Well, they could meet anywhere. They could meet anywhere. It's like, do you remember the problem in Panama with one of the last dictators there?
Noriega.
I want to say Noriega. The Vatican offered to play a role, and they did play a role in getting him out of the country. He took refuge in the Vatican embassy, or the Vatican mission. They call it. They don't call it an embassy. But right. Yes, I mean the Vatican plays this role all over the world, and they always have. It's the reason we have a diplomatic corps, because the Vatican is technically neutral in all of these areas, just looking for peace. They've even sat down and negotiated peace between non-Christian nations. It's the idea of peace is peace, you know. So I mean, it could take place in the Vatican. It could take place anywhere. But they would have the Secretary of State probably and a committee of people that he chose to negotiate there and to be facilitators to the discussions. Could happen. It could happen. We'll see.
All right. And then the same question arises with regard to Gaza. The Pope Leo mentioned today in his first general audience in St. Peter's Square that he wishes for a ceasefire and an end of killing in Gaza. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, the only thing I can tell you and everybody else, and give my opinion, this has been going on for thousands of years. Thousands of years. And I don't know how it's going to be resolved, but I don't think you're ever going to find peace in the Middle East. I think it's just not going to happen. There might be a way to put a Band-Aid on things every once in a while and regroup and re-strategize, but it's going to come up again and again and again. It's very simple. The Palestinians do not want the Jewish people in their land. The Jews are not crazy about having the Palestinians in their land. Each one thinking it's theirs. This is what's going to go on and on forever. It's a battle. It's a battle. I don't know that they really, truly, Robert, this is the craziest thing. I don't really believe they want a solution. They may say they do, but I don't see it. Every moment, every chance they get for war and battle, they're right there. It starts again. I don't see the longing for peace, the goodwill toward a lasting peace. Don't see it. Haven't seen it in my lifetime. And from what I read in the Old Testament, it hasn't been going on even then.
All right. A lot of people are wondering also what he will do about very vexed questions, among them Bishop Strickland. Someone wrote an article saying the entire pontificate the direction will be revealed by whether Strickland receives back an episcopal role in his diocese or in another place. How could this be resolved, and how do you see that whole situation?
Well, I see a few things, not just Bishop Strickland. I would love for Bishop Strickland to be reestablished. There is no reason that he's not a bishop with his own diocese. There is no reason. There really isn't. And people were trying at the beginning to say that Prevost had something to do with that as head of the Congregation for Bishops. Let me just assure you, I think, I can't assure you, I don't know, and I don't read tea leaves. This was Pope Francis. This was Cardinal Parolin. They wanted that done to Strickland. This was not necessarily Prevost, Cardinal Prevost, as head of the Congregation for Bishops. He would do what he would be told to do by the Pope and the Secretary of State. There's no question about it. But it's not, he had something personally, some personal involvement in getting Strickland out of the diocese. Not true. That has to be rectified. There is no reason for this man to have suffered what he suffered. There's just no reason, because he believes in God and he believes in the Catholic faith. This is outrage. That has to be rectified. Francis is dead. It can be rectified now.
Right.
What concerns me more than that, and I love Bishop Strickland. I find the man a living saint, a very good man, straightforward, honest. I think any priest would be honored to have him for his bishop. But what concerns me more than that is the China situation.
Okay.
This is really, really, all of these things are important, okay? But the China-Vatican Accord has not been made public. We don't know what it is. We feel, and the Chinese Catholics certainly feel that they were sold out. They were sold out to the communist government. The communist government is naming bishops left and right. The communist government named 2 bishops after Francis died and before the new pope was elected. They named just 2 bishops. That's what authority they think they have over the Catholic Church. Cardinal Zen went to see Pope Francis, was left on a seat, on a chair for 3 days out in the corridor, and was not received by the Pope because he was against this. You can't deal like this. For an amount of money given by the Chinese communists to the Vatican, you turn over your church to them? No, that it's wrong. It's wrong. Everybody knows it's wrong, and it has to be dealt with immediately. We're waiting for Pope Leo to deal with that, to make known what the deal was, and to renege on it, to say that it's canceled. We don't deal with that. We don't deal with souls that way. They're not sold and bought. This is outrageous. Another thing is the TLM, the traditional Latin Mass, right? The Tridentine Mass. People are waiting for a statement from the Pope giving permission again for that Mass to be as Pope Benedict had established it, for any priest to say it whenever any priest saw that there was a reason for saying it or wanted to say it. It should go back to the priest, and that should be dealt with. It should be dealt with soon. A problem that came up is there is an annual pilgrimage to Chartres,
Right.
in France.
Yep.
The cathedral has now been closed to a Tridentine Mass, and the bishops of France, this is the most incredible thing, they're trying to forbid all along the way. It's a 3 days of pilgrimage, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Along the way, it is forbidden to offer the Tridentine Mass anywhere, even in a field. This is incredible. There's something wrong with these people, with our bishops who think this way. This is the movement that's growing, and this is the movement that's Catholic, and this is the movement that has young people. It makes no sense. That has to be dealt with. It has to be addressed. It really does. And I've got one more thing. Yes, Vatican finances.
Mm-hmm.
That also has to be addressed. Those are the four things: Vatican finances and the Vatican Bank. And we can't be having every other year. There's a major scandal over money and how money is being stolen. It's being manipulated here, taken out. Stop it. That has to stop. There has to be fiscal responsibility. The Holy See has to show the world fiscal responsibility. If anyone can do this, it's the Holy See. And if anyone should do it, it's the Holy See. That we can't keep having these scandals every other year. Just can't.
All right. Well, we've got about 10 minutes to go, or 8. So I'm not sure whether I should just make a couple of comments on the 4 or 5 points you just made, or go on.
Robert, can I ask a quick permission here? I want to get
Sure.
another bottle of water, and I forgot to bring one over. May I?
Oh, sure. All right. I think some of the things that are said need to be set into deeper and fuller context. On the one hand, and Father's not hearing me right now, it's absolutely true that there's a tremendous battle, and the battle line is being drawn, which has to do with a kind of modernized version of the faith and the traditional Catholic faith. There's no doubt. This is very clear. Father, I'm just saying, there's no doubt that there's a dispute.
I'm listening. I heard.
But on each of these points, there is a danger that if we exaggerate something or don't document something, we could diminish the effectiveness of our argument. And on each of these points, if we're ever going to, the Pope has said, as well as speaking about artificial intelligence, as well as speaking about peace and trying to work for peace and maybe even host negotiations, he's talked about unity. Now, unity has to be in truth, but it takes somehow, how do you arrive at unity, Father, when somebody has they make a different argument about the possible benefits or morality of something like an agreement, some type of a concordat with China, for example, or maybe to the extent to which Bishop Strickland was directly accusing his own Pope of being a heretic. And at a certain point, what do you do in the middle of these cases, which have left us with a certain amount of wreckage and division in the church? Is there a way to overcome the division?
There sure is. Would you like my opinion of what that is?
Go ahead. Yes. This is the conclusion of the argument.
All right. It is called unity. And we need unity. We have one holy Catholic and apostolic faith. We profess it every Sunday in the creed of the Mass. We hold all of these things to be sacred and to be believed by every Catholic. Everything that the Church has taught for 2,000 years is to be believed by every Catholic. That is what we need. That is the unity we seek. Now, you're free to accept or reject them. That's up to you. But the point is that they have not been taught for 60 years. And that is why we have all of the division. We have to get back to an understanding of what it is we believe firmly and profess it. It's not complicated at all. It really is not.
Okay. So on each of these points, the Vatican's agreement with China was allegedly to try to give some protection to the church. There were always the underground church and the state-promoted church in China, And we always thought the underground Catholics are the true believers, and they're very noble, and they should be supported, and they were supported by Rome. And then with this latest agreement, there was an attempt to try to merge these two groups together and to open up the possibility of a growing Catholic Church, because the church has remained more or less around 10 million people out of more than a billion for decades now. And it is a problem that it's a secret agreement, and yet we don't want to lose sight of the fact that if you are dealing with a communist dictatorship and you reach some sort of agreement that theoretically should give you some legal standing and protection, you possibly have made a step forward. But you can shoot that out of the water too. Go ahead. Do you have any thought on that?
Look, I'm sure that there are a lot of pros and cons. I'm sure that there were a lot of pros and cons in the question of Henry VIII's marriage and the annulment. There were pros and cons to everything. What the church is supposed to be is strong enough to hold on to what is right, not to what is expedient. Because they're going to give us $2 billion a year, the Chinese communists are going to give the Vatican $2 billion a year. We sell the Catholic Church out in China. People, this is what people are saying, and people are saying this all over the world. This is a scandal, and poor Cardinal Zen. I mean, I can't believe it, how he was treated. It wasn't enough that he's been imprisoned and tortured and beaten and everything else, but not to be even received by Pope Francis for 3 days, sitting in the corridor on a chair. The whole thing is. I don't know. Are these believers? Are these believers? Are they believing in the Catholic faith, in God, to deal with things in this way? It's a scandal. It really is a scandal. Where are our principles? I don't understand this. I do understand it. I don't accept it. This is what's got to change. And listen, if I hear the word transparency one more time, I'm ready to scream. Yes, we want transparency. And if these people keep talking about it, but there isn't any. It's
okay.
It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. And something else that's frustrating, Robert, is this. People are waiting. You know this because people write to you and they call you and you have communication with people. I get tons of calls and letters, emails every day. People don't know what to make of this pontificate, and they're very nervous. They just want to, where are we going? Where are we going? Can we have the Latin Mass? Can we not have the Latin Mass? Can we have what's going on? It's by now, a few things should have already been settled. Usually when a new emperor comes in or a new king, he forgives everybody who is in jail and they're released the next day. And there's feasting and everybody's happy. All right, good. You start with the psychological treatment of the new king to the new people, to the old people. Well, we don't have that yet. We're waiting. There's a lot of speculation also, Robert, as to the role played by Cardinal Cupich in Chicago and the American Cardinals in this whole thing. And people dislike that very much too. And that's not clear. They want this Pope. We all want this Pope. I do too, to be his own man. I think he's a very capable man for the job. I really do. And we're all very hopeful that he's going to take the bull by the horns and face the situation. That's all good, and he's the man for it. That's not a problem. That he do it is another thing, and that he not be influenced by shady people. Let me just put it that way, with their own agendas.
I guess the final remark then is he's got 5 or 6 defining decisions right in front of him. We should expect them in a series of decisions that he will issue in the next few weeks, next 4 to 8 to 12 weeks. And this means right now we are in the honeymoon period. He gave
Robert, Robert, I would almost say it was a very short honeymoon.
So
I think the honeymoon is coming to an end real quick.
So he had his inaugural mass on Sunday. It's now Wednesday. We are raising 5 or 6 points that he has to take a decision on. And he must have others whispering in his ear, do it this way, do it that way, take your time, make a compromise. And then the Holy Spirit, it must speak to him and say, the church needs to be given its direct compass direction once again in a world filled with fake news, false news, compromised news. And therefore, we are right on the vigil now of the true beginning of this pontificate, and we'll watch it unfold in the next few days and weeks.
Well said. Well said.
So thank you, Father Murr, and thanks all of you. We'll do our best. You can at least know if you see us, Father Murr's face is hard to duplicate by artificial intelligence, and I think
mine is easy. They don't have to waste any time on the hair.
But we will try to continue. We may not always be perfect, but we'll try to be honest and face all the things that come up. We do hope that there'll be a liturgical return to tradition, which is the holiness of the celebration of the Mass, and all these other matters of the departure from traditional teaching. It's an enormous task, and it's right in the hands of a man who grew up in the south side of Chicago, Leo XIV. We pray for him, and
we do.
And we wish all of you well. See you next week.
Come with us on a unique pilgrimage and retreat to renew your spirit. Experience the beauty and richness of southern Spain. Our retreat master, Father Charles T. Murr, a renowned Catholic priest, best-selling author, philosopher, theologian, trained psychologist, and pastor of souls. Father Murr will guide us through 3 mornings of spiritual reflections at a convent located in the historic heart of Carmona, Spain, promising a transformative journey. Experience an intimate evening with Father Murr at his home. Wine, dinner, music, and conversation, a highlight of this unique experience. Explore picturesque towns in Andalusia, each with its own history and charm. From the ancient streets of Carmona to the majestic beauty of Cordoba, the breathtaking views of Ronda, the remarkable village of Centenil, and the historic wonders of Seville. Our pilgrimage will be filled with awe-inspiring moments. Join us on this profound spiritual journey and rediscover the joy of faith, fellowship, and renewal. Book your place now and embark on a pilgrimage and retreat unlike any other.